And people started to realize one of the very obvious things you could do with a smart contract is that you can deploy an extra currency. So you have a smart contract which, on top of the Ethereum network, lets somebody create another token which people can trade around. And before long, this got standardized into a thing called ERC20, which is just a standard for how exactly this type of smart contract works, where you can have people with account balances and the people can trade the tokens with each other and they can put them on exchanges.
It is a small application if you think, if you had to open your computer and code the application to create a coin. It's not like a huge software. But if 5 people do 5 different software, they behave in different ways, not very clear. Can you create new one or not? Can you send them to others or not? Who can send? So
it became kind of standardized in this thing. And this became the basis of this new model of project funding in crypto projects, which were called ICOs, which are initial coin offerings. So this is, that phrase might sound familiar to you.
Yeah, right.
I feel like I've heard it somewhere before.
In the stock market, what is called IPO, initial
public
offering, is when a company goes from private to public and create stocks that are put in the market. So the initial offering set a price that is decided probably by auditors and other things, but set a price, and the stock go in the market. So the first to grab the stock are potentially making more money, as look, for example, Google, Amazon, Tesla, incredibly, people were like, sure they will crash. It went from $1,500 now dollars. And they were doing the same thing. So they were saying, okay, I create the equivalent of the stock of a stock market, representing, and wasn't clear at the time because people say we pay the dividend of the application, then comes out they actually can't because the stock market is regulated and the government division that monitor these things says no, then they say it's a token for utility. But anyway, the idea was that this has a value, people want it. When somebody wants something and it's scarce, mean there is a finite amount, people need to pay for it, okay? If there are only 3 of something in the world and I have 2 of them, you want one of it, either you get it from me or not, so they set the price. So the idea is this: if they were creating 100,000, 1 million, 1 billion, whatever it is, of these tokens, they were connected by their own saying to a project in some form, and they were representing something related to this project, that you need to use the project or whatever. It wasn't clear. But a lot of people didn't really care that this thing was
exactly
clear.
What I want to emphasize is that because they went from so an IPO in the stock market is this very carefully regulated thing. There's all this financial legislation around it, corporate legislation around it, exactly what the status of the company has to be in order to qualify for IPO, what your tax reporting standards are, how you have to report your expenditures to the public. There's insider trading laws about like what kind of information you're allowed to have when you make purchase or sell, stocks on the market, and there's regulations that help tie the value of the stock to the intrinsic value of the company to make sure the company can't offer to certain values that are unrelated to what they can actually back with their numbers. It's very tightly pulled together in a way that's very closely regulated because at the very beginning, this market was a wild, wild west. People would start selling stocks of a company and people would just go crazy.
I think it's a natural thing. It's a sort of an IOU, the stock, based on something. You want to open your shop and you don't have money to open the shop. You create 1,000 IOU because you give to people and say, hey, this makes you part owner of the shop, and you're going to get a dividend of the money that the shop makes. And this is something that I think the bank start with is IOU. Banknotes are IOU, sort of in exchange of gold. Rather going around with gold, they could get robbed. You leave the gold in a safe place. There is the bank, and they give you a piece of paper that says this represents such gold, and you can trade the piece of paper rather than the gold. And that's the story.
Today, it's a nice fantasy that I could go and get equivalent gold for my banknote.
I was young enough. I'm old enough. I was young when I was in the United States. they can you actually exchange it for gold and silver, still the banker. In fact, they get, and they cannot refuse, you get the silver coins at the time. No more.
But so, in fact, you make a really important point, which is the other thing that people expected about these IPOs is that by buying shares in a company, you are now a part owner of that company, which means you're entitled to some of the profit that the company makes. It means that you have decision-making power. You're, you have a vote in all the big decisions that the company takes. For all rights and purposes, you are one of many public owners of the company. So, this term started off in the crypto world, this ICO, where basically people would go and create an Ethereum smart contract that represents a token, and they would kind of mimic a little bit in style the process of a company which is launching and doing an IPO.
Just to say, ICO stands for initial coin offering rather than public
offering. Exactly. And so this carried over a lot of people's intuition about what an ICO is. They go, oh, I recognize this thing, so they're going to sell a bunch of shares of their business, and people who buy the tokens are going to become part owners of their project. And when their project makes a lot of money, then this ICO token is going to become worth a lot of money and things like this, right? And did that turn out to be true?
No. Actually, many people in finance do this. Mostly with small companies. When they do the IPO, I remember at the time there was Yahoo stocks that had this chat room for each company. You put a symbol because each stock was represented by symbol of 3, 4, 5 letters. In fact, the ICO coins have 3, 4, 5 letters symbols as well.
On the exchanges, yeah.
You see the chat and people are lying the chat about some inside information, so everybody want to buy, they raise the price, so they dump their own, and then the price goes down, they repurchase them back. Crazy. And this made a lot of people expert in only creating virtual value out of this stock.
Speculation.
And then to the ICO with the token of these things, so that they can buy a cheap price, they can create a lot of requests, price goes up, they dump, price goes down, rebuy, price goes up, and they make money in this way.
What made this profitable?
Sorry, not caring about the project. I know people that put $100,000 on doing this pre-sale, sale, etc., without even knowing what the project was about. The evaluation was how known is, how many people is interested, how much advertisement they're doing, but not how good is the project.
They want information to speculate on the value of the token from the public perception.
And this is very damaging for a project that is honest.
So how did this ever work? So I think one of the important things that happened is, so with the rise of Bitcoin first, and then something like Ethereum when it started to take off also, you had this kind of new class of crypto wealthy people. So these were people who were aware of this little cryptocurrency bubble when it was first started. They picked up some of these coins for fun when it was cheap. They didn't know if it was ever going to become anything. It did become something, and now these holding a bag of 50 Bitcoins makes you a multimillionaire, or not quite, but,
no more.
But
I know people buying Ethereum at 25 cents each and selling them at $1,500 each. So make a calculation: 25 cents.
So you have all this wealth circulating in this crypto space, and all somebody has to do in order to take some of that wealth is convince you a little bit that either because you're a crypto guy and you think their project is cool and you want to support that kind of project in the positive sense, or in the more, I guess, self-interested sense. I don't want to call it negative necessarily. You want to go and speculate on what the value of the project is going to be, or how many other people are going to buy in, and play this kind of market manipulation game to see if you can increase your wealth. So what we found in this condition with a lot of people who were newly rich on crypto money, and it was very easy to motivate them when they saw other cool crypto projects.
They're called crypto whales.
Crypto whales. What we saw is this condition where many times a new project, and Roberto mentioned this all of this in his first couple of sentences, but we're unpacking it now. People would start with a project. So Bitcoin had a white paper, right? And a white paper is a term that used to mean kind of a scientific research publication. So it's a very formal statement of a technical description of a system and some algorithms or properties of the system, all outlined in mathematics with some experiments and reporting some results. Since then, it became part of the ICO world that every project needs to have a white paper. And what it means to be a white paper has progressively degraded over time to the point where, by probably 2015, 2016, 2017 especially, a lot of the white papers that come out for projects are just like a 3-page pamphlet about this little, they just say like, we want to have infinite transactions per second by using quantum secure blah blah blah, and they write like 2 pages about it with a lot of graphics.
It was a salad made by buzzwords, some things that people will hear, I heard this term but don't know what it means, and nice graphic design that makes it convincing in a certain way, and a few names of important people attached to it.
So they would take this thing, which is essentially a marketing document, and they would call it a white paper, and in fact the problem had gotten so bad that I heard somebody use this term, even though I don't run into it normally. The guy said, oh, but after your white paper you should publish a yellow paper. I said, oh, what? And he goes, like a technical paper that explains your, and I was like, that's what a white paper is. He says, no.
Probably got confused with white pages and yellow pages.
So apparently it's come full circle to the point that white paper now just means the marketing document, and your yellow paper is the one that's supposed to be I've never seen a scientific journal written in yellow paper, but whatever. So this leads us to this condition where a lot of people, probably to the 2017 ICO craze was around where this was, Bitcoin was going up, Ethereum was going up, the whole
so a lot of people became wealthy. Just to recap, a lot of people invested little, $1,000, $5,000, $10,000, which became millions worth of dollars, okay? So these people didn't work hard for those money. They've been lucky, like winning a lottery. At this point, they want to make this money a use. And it comes easy to put $50,000 here, $50,000 there, because it's not a loss that, oh my God, 10 years of hard work. It's a loss that, okay, a little bit, a little less. I still have the yacht and the Lamborghini in the garage. That doesn't go away. This made people put a lot of money on things just for the financial value, or just because of generosity. Sometimes people as crisis says, why I've been so lucky, I want to help somebody else too. But push a lot of people to some really scam, and from the zero knowing that there was a scam, because 3 pages and then find themselves in trouble and delivering 4 years later. Others honestly trying to do a project and then getting the money. This happened with some startup I saw as well, that nice work, nice project, the kids that pretty much don't even have where to sleep, etc., etc. $5 million in, they start buying nice car, start going holiday, forget about the project they need to do. Because the key point and the key issue, in my opinion, is the fact that you go in a different order. So usually you work and then you get paid. You produce an object, you sell it, and they pay for what you made. And now you get the money for a promise that you're gonna do something that you don't even know you actually can do. And obviously, people that start working honestly, that make promise that they can keep, end up in the shadow, because these people were making incredible promises they will never be able to keep just to make this thing.
And this rounds out kind of the story of the ICO bubble, if you want. Is around this time is there were so many projects that turned out to be either complete scams in the sense that people never had any intention to build the project, they just did marketing and they took the money and ran away, or they wound up unfulfilled in the sense that the people intended to build the project but they're not really intelligent or have the expertise to do it, they don't have the right people, and the money kind of gets squandered on a lot of questionable decisions, and then and kind of gets lost, so a lot of money and enthusiasm got lost into those holes.
During the phase, those that speculated it made their money. Those that honestly held the project lost their money. And in the overall, people say, okay, this whole scam, because as you know, just when one apple is bad, then you don't eat any other apple in the basket.
And by this time, the regulators were starting to get more involved as well.
Exactly.
The SEC in the United States started to look at this, and they're like, well, you guys are selling securities, and we regulate the sale of securities. And it's to the point now that because of regulatory uncertainty and a few opinions that have happened in the U.S., most people in the U.S., like myself, aren't even allowed to participate in ICOs.
In fact, ICO changed names, they start calling them initial or post first. There are so many different, at the end, it's the same thing, right?
It's the same idea. You're going to sell a token to finance.
So what's the key? Just to recap all the discussion. Bitcoin has been created, a basic first proof of concept with the investment of the guy that started coding this thing, has been put out to work, created some coin, and other people start making money with this coin, start investing more in the technology, and it grow with the participation of the public. In the case of proof of stake first project like NXT Next, the money were collected beforehand has to wait to give a value, pre-value of the token, meaning if I pay 10 for this, I'm not gonna give it to you for 5 unless I'm desperate, at least 10. So the idea that this billion NXT coin were put out there helped to say, okay, people pay 21 Bitcoin, so this billion is worth at least 21 Bitcoin. Right? And it worked. At the end, ended up worth tens of millions of dollars as market cap. But the difference was that the money were collected beforehand to execute the project, and this gave this shift.
Yeah, it's time to ask a very important question, which is looking at this phenomenon, is the idea that there should be a new crowdfunding model to help people who want to build crypto technologies, is it wrong that a project should be able to raise that kind of money?
See,
or is that what was wrong with ICO, or is it the execution?
I've been in the scene for many years. Many people ask why you never did an ICO. You know, it's strange. It's like if somebody is a pilot, why you never run in a rally or something, right? Because I find ICO very unethical. I've been starting companies since I was a teenager or younger even, and I always put my work and the money that I made, I reinvested to grow the business, including the last one that we are now working with. And it is, to me, ethical to sell something when you make it, or at least when you have a tangible proof that you can deliver it, right? So, on this basis, the idea of Bitcoin, I like it more. On the fact that there is a product that runs and then people invest to make it better, right?
Yeah.
But yet that was fully done as a principle of not for money. Probably the person that implemented it already was wealthy enough. He wanted just to make a political statement in that moment for bank and finance. What we want to see and analyze is a system that, as an ICO, allow the producing party to make some money after they've been working hard, but the investment party, if you want to call investment, or the part that pay money for whatever they get, to pay something that is there, not a promise for the future, right?
And so this brings us to this entire time for the past 1 year that we've been building this new ZooBC blockchain, we've been thinking about how we want to do this. We know that we want to raise funds for the project because we know there's lots and lots of cool stuff that we can do with it, that we'd love to spend our day working on all these new solutions to cryptographic problems. And now we've built a lot of them. We've really, really built. We have a working, say in probably 1 month's time, we're going to release a beta version, which is going to be No, it doesn't have 100% of the feature set, but it's going to be a fully operating blockchain that has a lot of the mechanics that you can expect to see in the running one. We're going to have the open source code. I mean, this is a project with probably 20 repositories, and the core node code base I know has hundreds of files and thousands of unit tests, and it's very serious software.
And we did all this without ICO, meaning that we had a company that made money, and we used the money that the company made to invest and produce what we've been working on.
Now we look the funds to take this kind of project into the future.
So as a company, now that we have a product, we can sell it, and with the money that we make by selling this product, we can finance our own execution for further version.
And we can make quite a good offer as well. Say our blockchain, ZooBC, is more like Bitcoin in the sense that we don't start with 1 billion tokens created at the beginning.
And this is the key aspect. We are still in the idea that ICO is unethical. So I don't want to create 1 billion coins to give that represent ownership of or promise of the future things, because besides being regulated and illegal in most cases, is also unethical. So that's not the way. I don't want to have a blockchain that has the coin pre-created at day zero, because again, you put things into this aspect, even though in the case would be I create all the coin to myself and then I sell it to others, so it's not even a promise of the future, it's something that is there. So, but I would really love to have a blockchain where the coins are created as they go, and they go in the hand of many different people, because they are really decentralized, right? And the economy of this blockchain is distributed around the world for real.
Absolutely.
Okay. What was the initial principle of Bitcoin, right? Of Satoshi Nakamoto. But that didn't work out.
Well, and that's another problem we tried to solve with our consensus. But so suffice to say that this blockchain is going to start with no pre-mined coins. So on the day the blockchain starts, there's going to be 0 tokens in existence, and each block is going to create a few more tokens and contribute them into the ecosystem.
So we don't have any token to sell beforehand, so we cannot make money by selling something that doesn't exist, right? So what will we do?
There's another purpose of this thing, and I go back to the NXT one, the NXT ICO as an example, which is that in NXT, which is a proof of stake blockchain, Roberto mentioned there's a technical reason they needed to distribute the funds, and that technical reason is that when you cut the NXT is proof of stake blockchain, which means that the power over the blockchain goes to the people who actually have the money on the blockchain, who have the tokens. And specifically, it means that if any one person possesses more than 50% of the money, then you have this problem that person can abuse the consensus mechanisms of the blockchain. He can start making rewrites of the blockchain when he wants. So in order to create the security guarantees that a blockchain has, in NXT's case, you have to give the money to a wide enough group of people that you can reasonably expect that no one person is ever going to hold 50% of it. And especially at the least, at the beginning, at day 0, you don't want one person to hold 50% of it.
That's why the distribution that happened at the beginning is of key importance for the reputation of the blockchain in the long term.
Or, in fact, it should be. We've been advised by some people now, because now we're like getting into maybe the 2018, 2019 ICO era after the boom. People are starting to do these other weirder models, and we had one guy come and advise us of one. He goes, "Oh, no. Now you don't sell all the tokens up front. When you do an ICO, you sell like 10% of them to raise money, and you hold on to the other 90% of them. And you make a promise that you're slowly going to release these coins to the public over the next 2 to 3 years. Everybody knows it has to start centralized, and then it's going to become decentralized." And Roberto and I literally, I think, laughed this man out of the room.
Because that's not the principle of a blockchain. Decentralization, which blockchain is an important tool for it, put his foundation of a very basic and important principle. And as the name says, decentralization need to be decentralized, else it falls down on its own.
Right, more like why don't we just create a big database that we control and everybody trusts us as long as we hold 90% of the tokens?
So, on this base, now we have an advanced technology, something new, a step ahead in the process of this technology that respect the principle of an economy that is distributed along the participant, fix the issue of centralizing who makes money that Bitcoin unfortunately had with the few miners that get all the rewards on themselves, but reward the participation to the network. So every node that is respected enough to be part officially of the network get his share of all the new coins that are created, and so there is no way to centralize unless somebody starts owning all the coins on his own.
So we have now, like we said, it's very important to us. We think it should be important to any decentralized or blockchain style project that even at day one of its inception, the blockchain should start decentralized. So our blockchain, ZooBC, has this property that there's a kind of a temporary list of nodes that are allowed to create blocks in the network, and our consensus algorithm, in a permissionless way, so without us being in control, decides which people are going to start creating blocks and which people are going to get kicked out of the group and stop creating blocks. And these are the people who are also going to get paid for their service or their participation in the network. So one thing we can do is on the Genesis block from day zero, instead of us just launching one node and saying like, okay, you want to join, come join my node, we want to start in the Genesis block with a group of at least 1,000 people, 1,000 independent people who each have committed to run a node of this blockchain. And by being there at the very beginning, they have the opportunity to collect the largest share of the new tokens that the network is going to create, because like Bitcoin, this is actually going to decrease.
So it has a curve.
It has a curve. It's going to decrease and flatten out over time, the amount of new tokens that are created. So to be there at the beginning is the best. We evenly divide the amount of tokens the network creates between all the people who are participating.
And keep participating.
So this also means that as this number of participants grows, as nodes start to join the blockchain, the slice that anybody gets is going to get smaller of the total coins that are created. So you also benefit the most to be in the network when the blockchain is the smallest, when the network is the smallest.
Furthermore, because the process to manage to enter this circle of people that can create block and get their part of the reward, the share of the reward, is not a fast process, it's a slow process, and very few people manage to be added. Those that are there at the Genesis block have a good 3 months of exclusivity in collecting these rewards. So we got something that we can sell. We can sell an account in the Genesis block.
Correct.
And this is fantastic because in regulatory terms, we are safe. We are selling a place. If people don't run a node, they don't get anything. That's the problem. So we are selling the service to add somebody in the Genesis block. But we are decentralizing the blockchain, which is very important. So the zero, there are so many different people that are going to participate in this blockchain, making it secure. People need to pay to be in the Genesis block for a simple reason, because things given for free are never respected. When people put some money, then they're gonna think twice not to run the node properly and not to participate. And give also value to the fact that the things, the coins collected by these people, they have a cost for them, so they need to give it out at a certain cost.
So at the same time, we put all this together to look at what we've done differently from an ICO that we think is better. First, we invested our own time and energy and money
$2 million so far
to build the blockchain ourselves before we, without going and taking other people's money, without making a big stink.
We have an alpha network running.
Correct. We're about to have a beta network running that you can participate in. You'll be able to download the node
Open source.
and register it. Open source for you to review the code. We're gonna start this this sale. We're gonna offer to sell people spots in the beginning of the network, and this does two things. One, it makes sure that the network is going to be well decentralized from its very first launch, so that we have a lot of different people who don't know each other, who are each invested, they're committed to run these nodes, and secondly, and for this investment, they don't get nothing. It's not just a charity. They also are going to wind up with the best spots, or what we call a front row seat on the blockchain, for three reasons, which is that they're in the network when it's the smallest, so they collect the biggest slice. At the beginning of the network's life, it produces the most coins, and that they have 3 months of exclusivity.
And there is something even more cool that remain forever in history. Most of the people that created new blockchain left a secret message inside. We know that Bitcoin has a phrase from 1984 from Orwell, and other blockchain, including NXT, the secret phrase of the Genesis account is a famous phrase. Now people that is gonna have an account in the Genesis block of ZooBC, they have 100 characters to write their own message that is gonna remain in the Genesis block of ZooBC forever. Any other future version of ZooBC.
To leave their mark in history.
That's something that alone is worth, in my opinion, the fact of people who are participating.
And so, for all this that people have the opportunity to get if they buy one of these spots from us, also, we get to raise the money for this work that we want to continue to do in an ethical way, in the sense people know exactly what they're getting, there's no false promises, they can see exactly the state that the technology's in, and if we raise the money that we want to raise, then we're going to be well funded to push this technology to its limits, to go and actually make the, we have lots of partner companies that we're interested to work with to build applications that use this technology. We have lots of creative new transaction types we support on the network that are going to allow these new kind of hybrid, centralized, decentralized business models.
In fact, we have a long-term plan, about 10 years long, in doing 5 releases with a very important milestone in advancing this technology.
Yeah.
In fact, if we were releasing today the last milestone, it would be hard to understand for people because it's too ahead. And we also will learn a lot of things as we go, so probably we're gonna pivot to the best selection. And we already are selecting, because we have so much requests, what projects we're gonna start implementing. Something very useful, not to the level of CryptoKitties, even though it's a cool and fun things to do, but something that makes the usage of the blockchain raise. We have time during the testnet part. We start with testnet before we deploy the stable, where already projects are going to be implemented. So there is an experimental phase before
exactly.
the official phase.
So people have confidence that the money that they put are really going to go to us, who are going to use that money and that energy to build not only this ZooBC technology, this first version that's been released. You might have heard us talk about it if you're one of the 3 people who watches our podcast. You might have heard us talk about some very futuristic things that we have plans to do in the future, where if we have the time, because the difference for us is now, we're a blockchain consultancy. If we don't raise any money, nobody cares about ZooBC, we can go and sell projects. We can continue to do our own work.
What we always did.
What we always did. And all it means is that we're not going to spend our time creating cool solutions to cryptography technology problems for the rest of the public. Which we think would be a shame, because we would love to spend all of our days solving these kinds of problems.
It is in the information age. First, we digitalize things, right? What it was analog became digital: music, video, communication, photography, art. And now, with the blockchain, you can also manage this digital asset in a much more, so you can be a unique owner. Think this, an MP3 file I can make 10 copies and give to everybody. A Bitcoin, if I give it to Barton, I don't have it anymore, because if I can give a copy of my Bitcoin to Barton, Bitcoin will worth nothing. So these unique things that the blockchain allow, singularity in a digital era, is an important first step into this evolution of the digital age. And the decentralization, so removing the middle party in a process, think about the difference between ICO and IPO. IPO, usually you hear the bell going bang when they start doing the trading, then you close, try to send some money, make a transfer, TT, Saturday night, you need to wait the bank to open Monday. You can always buy and sell token of an ICO or transfer Bitcoin 24/7, because there is no human there, they need to be there to approve, it's all given by computer. So it's very important to decentralize processes, not only for a matter of better functionality and speed, but also to avoid censorship, to avoid control where people cannot post something because it doesn't respect the idea of the party running the service, the centralized service where people connect. So ZooBC is the first seed for something that grow that is gonna aim to decentralize services that today are centralized. Communication, mails, websites, social networks, and so on and so forth.
Absolutely.
In fact, the key of ZooBC is that is a tool for decentralization that is not connected to the financial value. A public blockchain need to have a token, a coin to exist, because as an economic incentive to run.
This is something.
But
we've taken some steps on in this first release of ZooBC that we're doing. We intend to take much more radical steps in the future as we look at what can be done to separate these two facets of the technology. So, what do we have in summary? In
summary is that if you want to run a node of ZooBC, is it a node for the testnet? Is it a node for the mainnet? Well, keep following us. Google ZooBC, ZOOBC, and see what is there, because soon, now we are doing some pre-sale to the friend, the favorite. In fact, if you know somebody that knows us, maybe you can get something, but soon it's gonna open to the public the possibility to lock one of these limited 1,000 seats that are going to be available.
Are you gonna get one? Is there gonna be one left? Would you want one?
Well, hopefully it's gonna be
we wish you the
participated. Okay, I guess that's all. We say hi. Next Monday we're gonna be back with you again, maybe with a better demo compared to last week, and with something new for you.